Hey guys, and welcome back to 410 Tech. Today we're going to have our review of the Steam Deck. We waited a long time to get this, and this is going to be one of many videos we're going to have on the Steam Deck. We're so excited to get this. In the description of this video, we have our unboxing and first look. Now, to get one of these, you're still looking at Q3, so October at the earliest to get one. We'll leave a link in the description for that, but without further ado, we're going to get into it right after this.
Alright guys, so here it is, the Steam Deck, and Damien, I think we should get the big elephant out of the room. Yes, this is big, it's chunky, but that's okay because it's just more to love. So the size of this thing is 11.73 by 4.6 by 1.93. So just for some context, it's about 2 inches longer than the Nintendo Switch. So we have the Nintendo Switch here. As you can see, yes, it is bigger. The Switch is actually 9.4 by 4 by half an inch. So again, it is a significant difference. And then we also have the Neo, which again, chunkier than the Nintendo Switch, but still not as chunky as this guy. But in hand, it actually feels really good. We were pleasantly surprised when we, unboxed it and started holding it in our hands and stuff. I was concerned because I have smaller hands. But actually the ergonomics of it feels really, really good. And weight-wise, it is heavier than something like the Switch. The Switch is 0.88 pounds, whereas this is 1.5 pounds. But you don't really notice the weight. And just like I said, it's very comfortable. You have these nice big grips for, adult-sized hands versus, the Switch is just very flat and there's not, much ergonomics to it. But this feels really, really good. Damien, what do you think about the comfort? How did it feel for you?
Yeah, since the grips are bigger and the size, given the size of it, you would think it would feel like it will weigh a lot more, but it's not really that bad, and it's spaced out, and like I said, the huge grips, and so the weight, it just doesn't feel like fatigue. So I played for 2 hours and I didn't really feel like, oh, my wrists are starting to get tired or anything like that. Yeah. So the body is all plastic and it has this it's matte black, but it has this texture finish on it, and that's really good for gripping when you're playing, and it feels nice in hand. Yeah. It has the Valve logo here in the back, and the screen's it's a 7-inch LCD IPS touchscreen. Now it's not OLED, so it's not gonna have those deep blacks, but the screen looks good. It's a 1280 by 800 screen at 60 Hz and a 16 by 10 aspect ratio with black bars at the top and bottom. And the brightness is 400 nits, so if you're playing outside in direct sunlight, it might not get bright enough for that. It does have an ambient light sensor that's going to auto adjust the brightness based on the lighting in the room. And the screen, it does have, like we mentioned, those large bezels, but when you're playing a game and you're immersed in it, you're not going to really notice that. Yeah. And this, the screen, it looks good now. If you compare it against something like the Switch OLED, it's not going to look as good, like I mentioned before. Yeah. So on some of the games that are playable but not Steam Deck verified, the text was kind of small. It was hard to read on here, but as more games get optimized for the Steam Deck, I don't think that'll be an issue. The overall look of it, I like it. I like the, these touch pads with the haptics and the button layout. I can reach the thumbsticks no problem, and the buttons. I think everything is well laid out. So I'm liking it, and I like the texture on there as well.
Yeah, and I like the overall design and look of it as well. It's, nothing flashy or anything like that, but I like that. It also has just some little decorative lines that kind of give it a little extra pizzazz, but again, it's not super flashy, and I think that's fine.
Now, one thing I did want to mention, you can scan it with a D-brand scan.
Yeah.
I don't know if we will do that, just because, putting those on sometimes would be a little bit of a hassle, unless you're somebody that installs Windows 10 or something like that. And we've done it before, but if you want to make it look a little bit snappier, you can put a D-brand scan on it.
Yeah. Alright, so let's talk about inputs, because this thing has a lot of input options. I feel like Johnny 5, what is the movie, the Johnny 5, I can't
Short Circuit.
Short Circuit. Input! So, again, lots of inputs. You have your thumbsticks up here, and the thumbsticks feel pretty good. They have a nice snap back to them. They feel good. My issue though, and I don't think you had this issue, but so these are also capacitive touch. So you know, it'll detect when your thumb's on the thumb pad for like gyro and stuff like that. But I think because of that, like it's a different texture maybe than some other, like the Nintendo Switch is more rubberized, so is the Aya Neo. So I think that might be why this is a different texture. But for me, it's also not concave enough. So my like just like moving the thumbstick to like select letters on a keyboard or even just in game, I found that my thumb slides off a lot. Again, I think if it was just a little more rubberized, or as you can see, it's not super concave, so not, you know, a lot of room
for your thumb to rest.
Yeah, so like, you know, mine just slides off. You didn't have that.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem.
So I guess maybe because my thumbs are smaller, I don't know. But it's just something to think about, you know, if you have small thumbs like me too, I guess. So then obviously you have your D-pad. Now to me the D-pad feels pretty good. I don't know how you felt about it. I know some people are saying it's mushy. I don't think it's mushy. I think it's just the right amount of click. And it felt good playing like, you know, platforms. Like I think we were playing a Mickey, I can't think of the name of that game, but for platforms it was fine when you need the D-pad. And then also you have obviously your A, B, X, Y buttons, like, you know, on an Xbox controller or something like that. And you might look at this and think the placement is kind of, because the D-pad and the face buttons are very much on the edge, like kind of like they're dripping off. But again, like the placement actually is perfect. Like, you know, I can reach all the buttons with my thumbs, no problem, the D-pad. So that's actually pretty good. And then the face buttons too feel really good. They have a nice click. And then you also have 2 track pads here, and these also have haptics. And the haptics feel pretty good. We weren't using them so much for playing games and stuff like that, but when you're in the desktop mode and you're trying to navigate the mouse around the OS, it felt nice. Like, I like the haptic feedback. And then you also have a Steam menu button, and then you have another quick settings button here. And then for in-game you have, like your start, select kind of buttons at the top. And then obviously you have your shoulder buttons, your triggers. Those feel really good as well. Now you didn't have this problem, but for me, my hands are a little bit smaller, and I will say that it's a little bit of a reach for the shoulder buttons for me. Not anything too bad, and kind of how the way I have it designed is this like kind of blends into the trigger, so you don't have to move your finger too much. And then obviously you have at the top, you have your volume up and down, you have your power button, you also have a status light, you have a USB Type-C. Now, the one downside of this is you only have one. Aya Neo, you have 2 at the top, 1 at the bottom. So you have a lot of, you know, if you want to hook in a keyboard or stuff like that, it's quite easy to do on that. Whereas, again, this just has 1. So you're gonna want to get something like this. Now, Damien, this is 8 to 1.
8 to 1, yeah.
Yeah, it has with HDMI, Ethernet port, which is nice if you have like not the best Wi-Fi.
Yep, and it has the micro SD, full-size SD, USB 3. I guess it's like 3.1 and 3.2, and it has 2 USB-Cs on there, and one's a 100 watt. This is a 100 watt PD charger, and as Michelle mentioned, the Ethernet.
Yeah, and I mean, you don't need something with that many ports if you don't want to, but again, if you want to connect some peripherals, you're gonna need something like this. Mm-hmm. And then so also at the top, you have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack if you want to connect, your headphone, your wired headphones. And on the bottom, you have a micro SD card slot. So those are all your, again, there's a lot of inputs, I forgot. So, and then you also have 4, I guess paddle, would you call them paddle buttons?
Yeah, paddles. Yeah.
Paddle buttons that you can map for additional, controls in games and stuff like that. I know, did you have any issue with like accidentally hitting them when you were playing a game?
Well, they weren't mapped to anything, so I think I did maybe press it once when I was, or a couple times when I was playing Dirt 2, but it wasn't mapped to anything, so it wasn't a problem.
Alright, because I know I saw some people were having issues accidentally pressing them. I didn't, again, I don't know if it's just because my hands are smaller, but to me, I didn't accidentally hit them or anything like that. The clickiness of them, I mean, they feel okay. It's nothing fantastic. And then again, I don't know how many people are going to be using it. I don't see us really using them.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another option. You know, for versatility. If you have something where you have like a loadout, or maybe for like FPS games, you want to have that mapped to something to do like a quick action or something like that. I can see them coming in handy. Yeah. But the accidental presses might be an issue. Also, if you wanted to use this to output display to like a monitor or a television, this does up to 8K at 60 Hz or 4K at 120 Hz. So if you can get settings of the game to support those resolutions and refresh rates, you can do that with this. It also, like Michelle mentioned, has the micro SD slot. Now it supports up to 2 terabyte micro SD cards, but there's currently none on the market. They actually just released like a 1.5 terabyte card, and that's going to be super expensive. But when you're getting your micro SD card, you know, you want to make sure it's an A2 card, because that's going to have the fastest speed. So that's going to be good for, you know, getting the games running as best they can, you know, as far as like performance-wise, reads and writes. Definitely, if you get the 64 gig model, you're going to want to get a micro SD card. And even with the 256, we have the 512 and we still got one because we're going to do a lot of retro gaming. We're going to want to put our ROMs on there. Also, it's easy to transfer games between the micro SD card and the built-in storage. And as far as the build quality of this thing, I think it's pretty solid. There's no flexing. All the buttons feel nice. The sticks feel really nice to me. Michelle did mention she had problems with you know, fingers slipping off, but these are like full like analog sticks. Whereas like the Nintendo Switch has like those really short ones, and the same thing with the iNeo. These are like the full analog sticks, and they feel really nice. All the buttons, the trackpad, and again that texture on there, and the weight is there, but it's not too heavy. And you know, in hand, it just feels very nice for gaming. I've had some long game sessions on it, and everything performs really well.
Yeah, and then my issue with the thumbsticks are very minute, because like you can get the little thumbstick like grip covers, which we have some. I just haven't put them on yet. Now it might not, the capacitive touch might not work with that. I wasn't really using the capacitive touch much anyways, so you know, but you can always take them on and off. So again, that's not a huge thing, but just something to note. Alright, so let's talk specs, and we'll go ahead and throw those on the screen now. For a CPU, in here we have a Zen 2 Van Gogh. It's 4-core, 8-thread with a 2.4 gigahertz base clock and a 3.5 gigahertz boost clock. And for graphics, the GPU, it's a RDNA 2 with 8 compute units up to 1.66 gigahertz. The total SoC power budget is 4 watts up to 15 watts. The memory in here, it's 16 gigabytes. LPDDR5, and the memory bandwidth on that is 88 gigabytes per second. The Steam Deck also has HD haptics and gyro 6-axis IMU. Now there's, as Damien kind of alluded to earlier, there was 3 different storage options. So you have the 64 gigabyte, the 256, and the 512, which is what we have. Now for storage, the 64 gig has flash storage basically. So it's not going to be as quick as what you're going to get with the 256 or the 512, which has an NVMe SSD. So if you want quicker load times, you know, stuff like that, you're probably at least going to want to get the 256. Another upside of getting the 512 is it also has a nano-coated anti-glare etched glass display. So that's going to help with your reflections and stuff like that. And for us, it's been nice, you know, not seeing your face glaring back at you while you're playing games. And you also get a slightly better carrying case with the 512 as well.
So now we're going to talk about the user interface and the user experience. Now it's running SteamOS 3.0, which is based on Arch Linux. If you're used to using Big Picture mode, it's similar to Big Picture mode, but it's not Big Picture mode. So on the desktop or the Steam OS, when you get there, you have your most recent games at the top, and you can see what you've been playing. It shows you some status of the battery and the time, and you can do a search function. Now, if you hit the Steam button, it'll bring up a menu. You can go home. You can see your library of all your games, and it's broken up to categories: great on deck, all games installed, and non-Steam. And you can navigate through those, and it has like a filter. You can go to the Steam Verify playable and not playable, things like that. Also, you can get to the store by pressing the Steam button. You can see what friends you have on, you talk to them, media, downloads, and your settings. You can get to your settings. So you can change things like display audio, Bluetooth, keyboards, and things like that. Also, there's a power. You can get to the power settings, so you can put the Steam Deck to sleep, shut it down, restart, change your Steam account. If you have different users with different Steam accounts, and you can switch to the desktop mode and the power, going to the power area of the Steam button there. To go back, you have the quick settings, which is the 3 dots at the bottom, and there you have notifications that you can change. You can look at, see what friends you have online. And then you have the settings: airplane mode, turn on and off Wi-Fi, Bluetooth. There's a night mode, the game rumble, and the haptics. You can toggle those on and off under those quick settings there. And then you have a performance section, which is like the battery icon. And then you can change like what performance settings you see, like the frames per second. You can see the GPU, CPU utilization, and it has from off to 4, and that'll, while you're playing, it'll be like a performance overlay of what the Steam Deck is doing there. And also you can limit the frame rate to, it's down to 15 up to 60, and then you can have it also unlock frame rate. But we found that locking, I think, so like 30 or 60 depending on the game, it gives you the most stable performance. A lot of things are like medium setting, 30 frames, and you get a rock solid 30, and it's a really enjoyable experience. You can up in the refresh rate as well, and there's you can turn on like a TDP limit, so you can go from all the way down to like 4 up to 15, so you can turn that on as well. And it has scaling options. It has like linear, nearest neighbor, integer, and fidelity super resolution. So if a game is running below the native screen resolution, you can use the FSR to bring it up, to upscale it up to the screen's native resolution. So that's really nice. And then FSR has like a sharpness setting slider that you can change that as well. So that's what you can do there for the quick settings and the Steam button. So it's really nice. You get real out of control, and that 30 frames per second lock is going to really help you get a nice experience in a lot of games.
Yeah, and then once you get used to, okay, I need to hit this button to get to these settings, this button to get to these settings, the UI is very simple. Like, you just pretty much have the home screen, those 2 buttons, outside of desktop mode, which we'll probably talk about in another video. But it's very intuitive, which is really nice, and it's very tightly integrated, obviously, with Steam. It's Steam OS, so it's very nice for that. Now, some other features that the Steam Deck has, so it has sleep mode, so you can be playing a game and just hit the power button and it'll go into a sleep suspend state. So, if you need to do something, maybe run out and pick up something from the store, you can come back and then immediately pick up where you left off. Now, the Steam Deck also supports something called dynamic cloud sync. Now, how it's supposed to work is, so kind of like I mentioned, you can be playing a game, go into sleep mode, and then if you wanted to move to a PC, it's supposed to seamlessly pick up right where you left off. Now, in our testing, so we tested it with Horizon Zero Dawn, for example. We also tried to look for a list online of what games are supported with Dynamic Cloud Sync. We didn't find a list. So again, we tried Horizon Zero Dawn, and how it worked for us is, so I put it in sleep mode after playing, went to my PC, and it knew I was playing on the Steam, but the cloud sync, I guess it said it was like out of sync or whatever, and it's when you hit play, it's, you know, telling me, it knew that I just had recently played.
On the Steam Deck.
Right, but it said the cloud, the cloud save wasn't...
It was out of sync.
Yeah, it was out of sync. It hadn't been, I guess, transferred to the PC yet or whatever. So it...
Well, it hadn't been uploaded to their cloud.
Right, it hadn't been uploaded to the cloud. So when I started playing, it just went back to my most recent campfire save, you know, your
save point.
Your save point. So, you know,
supposed to pick up right where you left off in
yes.
the game, so wherever you were in game is where you're supposed to pick up.
Yeah, so if it works, that's great, right? You can just pick up right where you left off. In our testing, it didn't really work out.
Right.
So that's just something to note. Now, we didn't really mention about the speakers, but it has dual speakers here in the front, so you get stereo audio. And Steam says that it has embedded DSP for an immersive listening experience. They sounded pretty good.
Yeah,
I mean, what
good. Did
you think? I mean, for two, you know, small speakers on a handheld, something like that, I thought they sounded perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You know, I thought they sounded good. But if you want a better listening experience, this does have Bluetooth 5.0, so you can connect up your headset, pair them up. In our experience, that worked well.
Or wired headphones as well.
Yeah, they paired right up, or yes, like Damien said, you can just old school it up, plug in some wired headphones, nothing wrong with it, we still do it sometimes. And then with the Bluetooth, you can also, like, maybe you don't like the controls of the Steam Deck, you can connect a Bluetooth wireless controller or other accessories, you know, if you want to connect a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, stuff like that, you can do all that. It also has Wi-Fi, and it's dual band Wi-Fi. You get 2.4 gigahertz and the 5 gigahertz channels, and it supports 802.11 up to 802.11 AC. Now, also we mentioned earlier that this has haptics. The haptics are nice. It's a nice addition. I know for you noticed the haptics a little bit more, right? And
yeah, it seems like it picks up on the right side a little bit more.
Yeah, and somebody else I know that has a Steam Deck said the same thing. Now you can adjust, you can even actually adjust in the settings, like turning up the right side or the left side, turning them up and down individually. So you can do that, and then if you don't like the haptics, you can turn them off as well. They're not great. I mean, they're not bad. I wouldn't say they're
might need a little bit more fine tuning.
Yeah, a little more fine. I don't know if they can do anything with an update on that on the software side, but
possibly.
You know, they're there. They're not the greatest. It is what it is. All right, now battery life on this thing. Obviously, everybody's wondering about battery life. It being a handheld console. It's a 40 watt-hour battery. Now, Steam says you can get gameplay between 2 to 8 hours. That's a pretty extensive range there. In our experience, especially for like AAA titles like Horizon Zero Dawn, Jedi Fallen Order, we were getting around the 1.5 hour to 2 hour mark. Right. Indie games, you're going to be able to go further.
Yeah.
I feel like 8 hours for anything might be a stretch. I don't.
Well, maybe if you're like retro gaming or something like Nintendo, you could probably maybe get close to that.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to play in 8 hour increments, but so that's the range. But for, like I said, for our testing for the AAA games, we're getting around that 1.5 hour to 2 hour mark. So your battery life may vary based on what you're playing.
Right. So in your library, you'll see 4 categories. You'll see deck verified, playable, unsupported, and unknown. So that'll, when you thumb over, so you go to your library and you go to all games, you'll get a little icon. It'll be like a green check, and that's a verified game that's verified to play on Steam Deck. And then there's like a yellow eye, and that's playable. And then you have the unsupported, which is like a question mark, and then the stop sign or the slash is unknown. But every day more and more games are being added to be supported on the Steam Deck. And you can also filter your library by games that are, verified to play. So, like I mentioned, not all games supported, but more are being added all the time.
Yeah, and then another thing too is you see that in your library, but you can also see that in the store. So when you go and you want to buy a new game, before you even buy the game, it'll tell you the support level. So if it's, verified, playable, unsupported, or unknown. So it'll tell you that in the store. And if you have a game that isn't supported, so for example, we wanted to play Marvel Avengers, it's an unknown or unsupported game. So another option, if you want to play your game still on the Steam Deck, is you can do Steam Remote Play. And so we tested that out, and it works pretty good. One thing to note is, so you do have to have in order to use the controls on the Steam Deck, you do have to have a controller paired up and on and active on your gaming PC. When I first did it, I didn't have that, and the controllers weren't working. I paired up and made sure the Bluetooth controller was active and detected, and then I was able to use the Steam Deck controllers just fine. I don't know if it was just the Marvel Avengers game itself, but the resolution was not great, and so the text was hard to read as well. But it is nice that you do have that option. So any game that you have on your Steam library, you can pretty much play
remote play.
Via remote play again if it's not supported on here.
Yeah. So if you're in your house and near the gaming PC with the controller, that's another way you can, play in another room on the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
So the Steam Deck has Proton, which is a compatibility layer that allows these Windows games to be played on the Steam Deck, which is Linux based. So that's great, and like we mentioned, more games are being made to be able to run with that Proton layer, running these Windows games on the Steam Deck. Now the loading times on the games are pretty good. On the SSD, the games load up pretty quickly, and the micro SD, if you get an A2 card, it's not as fast, but it's still pretty reasonable loading times with that as well.
Maybe just like another second or two or something like that added. So nothing super significant. So if you do run out of space, you get a flash or a micro SD card and put games on there, you won't notice any significantly longer load times.
And it's really easy to move the games in between the micro SD and the SSD. Yeah. And you can always uninstall games after you've beaten them, and put more games on. If you're getting performance issues on the micro SD, you can move them over to the SSD.
Right. Alright, so let's get into some gameplay and performance. Now, for benchmarks, we're going to wait to do those in our video when we compare the Steam Deck with the Aya Neo. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed for when that video drops. But let's go ahead and get into some gameplay.
So here we have Horizon Zero Dawn. The load time was around 23 seconds. We have the resolution set at the 1280 by 800 native resolution. Fidelity super resolution is turned on. We have the ultimate quality preset with motion blur turned off and a couple things turned down from ultra to high. And we have the Steam Deck locked at 30 frames per second. And you see here we got a stable 30 frames per second in Horizon Zero Dawn with a pretty high preset. So the Steam Deck is doing, really well here. Moving all around, see that frame rate's just locked. And you can hear those fans ramping up, so that's one thing to note while on the Steam Deck. The fans do get loud. You can drown some of that out with the speakers, or if you're playing with like Bluetooth or wired headphones, you won't hear it, but the fans do ramp up. But still, you're playing AAA game mobilely. You can pick it back up on your gaming PC. It really allows you to get a lot of progress done, but pretty high preset, pretty high graphics settings, 30 frames per second, Horizon Zero Dawn. Okay, so now we have Jedi Fallen Order, and this game is not verified, but it's playable. So, kind of mentions here with so the game's launcher, requires like the touchscreen, the virtual keyboard. So this has the Origin launcher, so you just have to type in your username and your password for the Origin launcher. And the text is kind of small, but you know, it wasn't too bad. We're able to read it. So once you're signed into that launcher, you're able to launch this game through Steam. I just wanted to mention that. And the load times were about 37 seconds to load the game. And so now we're gonna get into the game. But the Origin launcher was pretty easy to install and get that set up, and now we're able to play Jedi Fallen Order on the Steam Deck. Now resolution is 1280 by 800, and we have the motion blur, film grain, chromatic aberration, and camera shake turned off, and we're running at the medium preset. And we have the frame rate on the Steam Deck locked at 30, and we get a pretty solid 30 frames per second playing Jedi Fallen Order. So once this loads up, we get into some gameplay. All right, so here we have Jedi Fallen Order, 1280 by 800, medium preset. See, it's staying locked at pretty stable frame rate here. I remind my horrible gameplay. But yeah, I gotta play through this. Michelle's already beat it, but having this on the Steam Deck will allow me to, when I can't get down to the gaming PC, to get some good progress done on this game. And you know, it's just staying locked at 30. And pretty reasonable graphic settings, and it looks great on the deck. So there you have Jedi Fallen Order. So here we have Dirt Rally 2.0, and the load time is around 15 seconds. The resolution is 1280 by 800, preset high, and the frame rate's 30 frames, locked at 30 frames per second. Now, I'm used to playing on a wheel and pedal set. I did play controller back in the day on Gran Turismo before I got a wheel and pedal set. But yeah, so gameplay is not going to be the greatest. But we're staying locked at 30. And it's pretty smooth experience, and I am feeling some haptics here. Feeling it more on the right. Do feel it on the left. But that's nice. I like when I'm accelerating here and sliding around. Feeling some haptics. Adds the immersion. Oh, see, when I go to counter steer and then I steer back with the stick, I'm just not the greatest at that anymore. So I got the slide. I'm actually going to complete a lap. The wall will be my guide. So yeah, but it's pretty solid gameplay experience here on Dirt 2. And you hit the wall and you blow up the engine.
Alright, so now on to final thoughts. I personally have really been enjoying this. I think overall the design is nice. I was really concerned having smaller hands, like, you know, you kept on hearing this thing is huge, and so I was wondering how I was going to feel about it comfort-wise, but it's really pretty good. Like, it's comfortable. After playing for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, I did feel at times I had to kind of readjust my hands a little bit, and my wrists did get a little bit fatigued after, again, playing for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. But for the size and weight of this thing, I don't think that that's that bad. I mean, you would even get fatigued with the Nintendo Switch. And you know, I like that, you know, it's not anything super fancy design-wise. It just works, which is, you know, really good. And like I said, comfort and ergonomics. It's nice to have these grips. You don't have those with the Nintendo Switch, and that definitely helps with ergonomics, so I like that. I like the tight integration with SteamOS. Like, it's very intuitive and easy to use, and you know, you have your two main settings there. You have your, you know, it's just like you're immediately in Steam, so it's very game oriented. And gaming on here, the gaming experience is actually really good. Yes, the battery life, it is what it is. Like, if you're playing AAA games, you're probably gonna get closer to that 2 hour mark, which isn't a lot, but it is a powerful system, and you can, you know, medium to sometimes even high and still get pretty good frame rates. And the games look good. I mean, you know, the screen is small, so even though it's like 1280 by 800 resolution, the games still look crisp and clear. It's not an OLED. It's not going to look as good as, you know, games aren't going to look as good as on the Nintendo Switch with those really nice dark inky blacks. But for a LCD, I think the colors and everything, it looks pretty good. And I think too, for the sweet spot on which version to get, I feel like 64, you're gonna run out of storage quick. So yeah, you can get this 64 and pick up you know, a micro SD. I feel like the sweet spot though is the 256, because you at least get the quicker, you know, the NVMe, the quicker storage. And you know, the 512 we've been liking just because, you know, you have that anti-reflective kind of nano etch screen. So overall, I think it's great. There are some quirks and things that kind of need to be worked out, like the dynamic cloud syncing, and sometimes there's like a little bug that kind of pops up or whatever. But since the beginning, they've really been knocking out a lot of those bugs, and it's really gotten to be a much better handheld console, and I know it'll continue to get better. So I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, so like for the design of it, I think it's pretty good design. I especially like the full size sticks as compared to like Aya Neo and the Nintendo Switch. And for me, like I like the grips. It feels good in my hand. Like I never got any fatigue when playing it. Now there are, like Michelle mentioned, a few bugs. Like so, we'll get in the game and then you'll exit it, and you'll try to go back to your Steam library, and the B button won't work to go back. So then you'll have to go into Steam menu to get back to your library. So a few of those things need to be ironed out, but overall the experience is really great. I do like the quick settings buttons where you can go and change a lot of performance parameters, lock it at the 30 frames per second. 30 frames per second, so you get a really good game experience. And like Michelle also mentioned, the resolution of the screen is 1280 by 800, but since it's only a 7-inch screen, the pixel density, all the games look like really sharp and crisp, and so at that screen size, the games look really good. And just the fact to be able to play AAA games portably and then pick it back up on the PC, for me, like really helps me. That's gonna really help me get through a lot of my backlogs of games. Being able to play on something like this and have a good experience while doing it as well, it's also been great. And having that nano etch screen is a really nice sort of stop the reflections. The games like load quickly, and more games are being added to be deck verified all the time. So it'll be interesting to see where this thing is in like a year from now, and all the other things that the community is doing with this thing. We'll cover in other videos, like the emulation, getting Windows on, so you can you play your Xbox Game Pass library and things like that. So yeah, the experience has been pretty good. The weight of it, I played it for like 2 hours, and you know, I didn't really get any fatigue in that. Michelle got a little fatigue, but yeah, so it is big, but you think it will weigh a lot more for the size of it, and it doesn't feel that heavy. So
yeah, the controls and everything are nice.
Yeah, the controls are nice. So that's going to do it for this one, guys, but we have more videos coming up on the Steam Deck, and let us know if you're going to pick up a Steam Deck. You know, if you've already got your order in for Q3, if you're going to pick one up, and what games that you're looking forward to playing on it, what are some of the things you might be doing on this as well, and let us know in the comments also what other topics you'd like to see us cover on the Steam Deck. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.